Everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda Newell, and I'm the president of the Advertising Club of Toronto. Very thoroughly, couldn't be more chuffed and delighted to introduce today's event, which is Get Executive Smart on an entry-level salary. But before we do that, I have a few words on who the Ad Club is and what exactly we do. So the Ad Club of Toronto is a volunteer-run organization that serves both to connect this rather brilliant next generation of professionals to the advertising and marketing industry through Student Day and through the college and university scholarships that we're able to fund through our events, as well as a connection point. We also provide the reconnection point to each other with educational days like Digital Day and fun days like Ski Day happening on February 24th. And we're regathering us all together in a world that's become far too distant over the past 3 years. Plus, and this is important to mention, all the monies that we generate both go to those university and college scholarships, as well as to NABS, the industry's very own charity. So that's important to mention. So today's financial literacy event marks a number of firsts for us. It is the first Advertising Club of Toronto's event in 2023. It is my very first event as the Ad Club's new president. And it's the very first event and absolute brainchild of my rather brilliant colleague, Alan Cifuentes, the Ad Club's fittingly named Director of Giving. So I'm excited to see what Richard and Credit Canada has in store for a generation who, according to a BMO 2022 survey, is better at consulting and keeping to their financial goals. And I must say, better than any generation, including this rather spending mad member of Generation X. So without further ado, I introduce Alan Cifuentes, the Director of Programmatic Media at Media Experts during the day, and the wonderful Ad Club Director of Giving during his very rare time off. Alan, take us away.
Thank you so much for such a great introduction, Amanda. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Richard Haggins, Senior Education Facilitator at Credit Canada. With over 16 years of experience in the credit counseling industry, Richard is a seasoned expert in the field of credit and debt education and has presented hundreds of workshops to a diverse range of organizations. Richard is dedicated to helping Canadian consumers develop their financial literacy. Also, I would like to take a moment to thank Credit Canada for helping us in our mission to give back to our community and partnering with us to provide financial advice to students, newly grads, as well as media and advertising staff. Advice that is much needed during these challenging economic times. With Richard's extensive knowledge and experience, we are confident that today's sessions will be both informative and valuable. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Richard Haggins.
Well, thank you very much. It was a great introduction there. Let me just go and get my PowerPoint up so everybody can see that. I am hopeful that that is going out to everybody. Should be. Looks like it is. If you're seeing me looking around a little bit, my screen that I'm looking at, actually what I'm showing you is on my other screen. I try to look at my camera, which is over here. So anyway, thank you very much to Alan and Amanda and all the people at Ad Club for inviting me. And thank you very much to everybody who's joining today to see what I have to say in the area of money management for students and junior ad industry staffers. As you can see, the title of our presentation here today. I will mention that I have provided a PDF copy of this presentation to the people at Ad Club, and they will make sure that if anybody is interested in having a second look at what I'm going to talk about, that it'll be made available to you. Also, the presentation is being recorded, and you can review the recording if you choose to do so. Anyway, there is time for a Q&A session at the end, so let's just dive right in and take a look at what I'm going to be talking about here today. Three broad areas. The first area is just pure money management. You and your cash is what I'm going to call it. Then we have a short section that deals with the subject of credit and avoiding problems when using credit. And then we wrap things up with a little bit of a note on building a credit history and the importance of doing that. let me just, for a little bit, just go back and introduce myself slightly. Again, my name is Richard. I work for an organization called Credit Canada, where my job title is the Senior Education Facilitator. Now, Credit Canada is a nonprofit credit counseling agency. It's actually the oldest in Canada and goes back more than half a century. So what we do there, we describe our purpose pretty simply. We have an expression: we help people get out of debt so they get back into life. As a credit counseling agency, we are working with people who are our clients, and our clients they have one thing in common. And what that one thing in common is, they perceive that they have some kind of a financial problem that they don't know how to deal with adequately. And they're at a point where they're willing to talk to a complete stranger about the situation that they're in. That's about it. That's all that our clients have universally in common, is that this perception that they have some kind of a problem. Now, how they got to be in a problem, there's a lot of different roads to financial difficulty. And I'll tell you that as you go through life, you're going to find there's times in life where you just get unlucky. You have a bad day or you have a bad year. If I was to go through our client base and say how many of our clients have become clients because of things like job losses, health issues, marital or relationship breakdowns, that covers a lot. And things like that, they're going to happen. And I can't really tell you that, what to do to avoid those. However, there are a lot of times where people are in financial difficulty, and it is partially or totally it's their own fault. It's the actions they either took or the actions they didn't take. And we will often have clients who talk about the regrets they have, the things that they wish they had known. And that is the justification for what we're going to talk about here today. This is why we have an education department, is to talk about the sort of things that our clients say, would have been great if somebody had told me about this a lot earlier in life. And that's why Ad Club has invited me here today, is to talk about these things. So as we go through this today, I want you to sort of have a little mental picture. If you ever watch any war movies, you get the soldiers that are walking across a minefield. Well, sometimes your financial life can be a minefield. And what I am is I'm your guide. I'm going to point out, step there, it's safe. Don't step there, it's not safe. Okay. So anyway, that's where we're going with this, with that little mental picture in mind. Let's head into the minefield. Our first part here we're going to take a look at is about you and your cash. I'm going to give it the less exciting title of money management of budgeting, but it's about you and the money you have now, the money you will have someday as you go through life, your earnings, your spending, and what's happening with you and that inflow and outflow of money. Now, this section here, I've broken it into 3 subparts. The first part I call spending plans, also known as budgeting, but I don't like the word budgeting very much, so I'd like to call it spending plans. And then beyond spending plans, I have a couple of short sections. I have 1 slide actually on financial goal setting and 2 slides on saving, and that takes us out of the first section. Now, in the first part, spending plans, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to talk about how to build a budget. That's something, if you're looking for advice on how to build a budget, you can Google that. You know how to Google stuff. Type in how to build a budget, and you're going to find there's millions and millions of people out there with every idea under the sun. Old school, pen and paper. Everybody and their brother's got a spreadsheet they want to promote. There's apps galore. If you like apps on your phone, great, wonderful. There's lots of apps. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to talk about the horror stories or the bad news stories that our clients have relayed onto us, where they've said they wish that somebody had warned them about this. And, they could have handled their finances better if they had seen these things coming. So here we are. This is me giving you the roadmap to navigate your income and your expenses. And so what I'm going to do in the next little bit here, I'm going to take what I call a spending plan. which you can call a budget. And I've broken that into 3 elements. And our first element here is a look at the income area. Now, your income can be coming from, well, we've got 5 bullet points there. I could have put 50 bullet points there. And there's no surprises. Okay, income is coming from a variety of sources. Now, when I want to talk about problems, I want to talk about observations that our clients have had, when I get to the expense area, people get that. They get that very quickly. Okay, I can understand how, expenses can sink my ship. But what about income? What do you want to talk about in the area of income? And I've got 2 things I want to talk about very specifically in income. And the first one is about taxes. We're not going to spend much time on this. And I'm going to tell you right now that actually in the area of taxes, most of you are, I think it's going to be unlikely that you're ever going to have any kind of serious tax run-ins with a tax man, Canada Revenue Agency, because for most people, when you take a look at where your income is coming from, the bullet points I've got there, the top bullet point, employment income. Realistically, most people, their money is coming from a job. You have a job, you have an employer, and your employer is sorting out your tax situation for you. If you ever take a look at a pay stub, it says, well, here's your gross pay, minus off your taxes, take off the CPP, take off the EI. I'd say once in your life, actually read a pay stub and see what it actually has to say there. And you'll see, okay, that's your employer sorting out your tax situation in the background. Now, I have no idea where your lives are at right now, where your lives are going to, but I do need to point out that your age group, your demographic, statistically speaking, you are more likely to wind up in the world of gig work, freelance work, contract jobs, whatever. Maybe some of you are aspiring to someday become your own boss, to start your own business, be self-employed. And for anybody in these circumstances, it's possible that you might not have anybody looking over your income situation and withholding tax and sending it to Canada Revenue Agency. Now, we're not going to turn this into a big tax rant here today. So what I'm going to recommend is, if you find yourself breaking away from what most people do, if you find yourself, you're on the way to, becoming a contract worker, a gig worker, whatever, find somebody who's been doing that a little bit longer than you have. Take them out for a coffee or a beer or whatever they enjoy. Sit them down and ask them for some advice. Ask them how they handle things, what they did. You can get an awful lot of information from people who've just been in your situation, but they've been there before you. So anyway, that's how you deal with that. Let's move along to the other area I want to mention regarding income. And this one may be more relevant for more people. And this is the subject of irregular incomes. With incomes, I mean, for a lot of people, your income is pretty much, it's nice and stable. You get paid every week, every 2 weeks. I'm somebody who's got a very stable income, and stable incomes, it's a lot easier to budget off a stable income. However, there's times where people's circumstances lead to having incomes that bounce around. You could be a shift worker and you've got varying hours on a shift. You could be working in sales or something where you actually are earning commission or bonuses, and maybe those bounce around a bit. You could be self-employed. You could be a gig worker, a contract worker, things I was mentioning about before. Many years ago, when I was still an active counselor, I remember a client who was, he was in some form of sales, and I don't remember what he was selling now. This is a long time ago. But I remember that his income was it was mostly or totally coming from commissions. And this guy would go through, his year was like, it was up and down like you wouldn't believe. There was some months where he could sell anything to anybody, and there was other months where no, it was the complete opposite. And it was the combination of his income flows and his complete inability to manage those cash flows. When I say complete inability, what I want you to hear is this guy was spending the money as fast as it came in. So he'd have a really good month. He'd be getting fat paychecks, and this guy would just be like a walking party zone. Money's coming in, money's going out. Money's coming in, money's going out. Nothing held over for the rainy day. And then, of course, a few months of the year, he'd have the rainy days. So he'd just run his credit cards. And that's why he wound up coming to talk to a credit counselor. The guy was like, he had these 4 credit cards. He was maxed out on all of them. And he's like, I don't know what to do. So I tell you what he should have learned. And what I'm talking to you about now is having a plan. You have a plan, whatever the plan is. And I don't really care what plan you have. Some people will have split budgets. They'll have a good time budget. They'll have a bad time budget. They'll have multiple budgets. Some people will run emergency savings accounts. They'll have an account here. They'll have an account there. That's a good plan. I've even talked to people who say their emergency plan is going to their mom and borrowing money off their mom. And as long as your mom's still around and she's got the money to give to you, well, you've got a working plan. Just remember that running your credit cards, running your debts to the moon, that is not a plan. Now, that's the income area. Okay, we're going to say we're done with the income area. What are we going to talk about next? The expenses, of course. And with the expenses, I break the expenses into what I call the fixed and what I call the variable. Now, there's an accounting definition of fixed. People hear fixed and they kind of like, they go to the accounting definition, an expense that does not change. It's always the same dollar amount. And that's all very nice, but it's not really appropriate for our purposes. When I say fixed, here's what I want you to hear. They're expenses that you're locked into. They're expenses where the amount that you have to pay is dictated to you by somebody else. Some entity tells you how much you have to pay, and you have no control over that. So if you look at the bullet points I have on this slide here, behind every single one of those expenses, you recognize there's an entity there. Your landlord tells you what the rent is. Your bank tells you what the mortgage payment is. All your utilities companies, they tell you what the utility bills are. They tell you the bill, and there's no negotiating. You can't very well, call up the hydro company and say, bill is too high, like lower the bill. And like, they're just going to laugh. Your insurance, your car insurance, again, there's something else as well that, it usually just keeps going up and up and up. Can't do anything about that. All the way down to the subscriptions and the memberships, your gym membership, your Netflix, your Disney Plus, whatever you happen to be, signed up for. And again, these are non-negotiable, right? So in the area of the non-negotiables, I can't tell you go and live in a cheaper world because we don't have that cheaper world to go and move to. But I want to point out the subject of being overcommitted. So overcommitment is something that sneaks up on people. And in particular, as young adults, I'll tell you that this is where having a spending plan and starting off with, even if it's just something you've just got written down on a piece of paper, it gives you a bit of an idea about what you can actually afford, what more you could add in without actually crippling yourself in terms of like what the overall balance looks like. And I will tell you, there are many people that are, your age or perhaps a few years older than you that look back and they really, really wish they had done the math before they signed the contracts. In particular, I've got to point to the housing market right now. And this is not a secret that housing is incredibly expensive. If you've gone looking for an apartment or if you've been trying to buy a home, it's like, they want what? They want how much? And you'll get people who they figure, I want to live in a halfway decent place, so I'll do whatever it takes. They sign the mortgage agreement, they sign the rental agreement, and then later on, they're just really struggling with their finances because they've locked up too much of their income that is committed in some of these areas. So try to leave yourself a little bit of buffer, a little bit of leeway. And my last observation here is a lot of the fixed expenses, for the most part, they're non-negotiables and they're higher priority. Everybody has to pay their rent. unless you want the landlord to kick you out. You pay your hydro bill if you like having electricity. You don't get much of a choice on your car insurance. I've met somebody back in the day who was driving a car with no insurance. Just figured I'm a safe driver, I'm okay. And he got himself pulled over by a cop while he was driving with no insurance. There's a bad day. You don't want to be caught in the province of Ontario driving a car with no insurance. That's going to be a day in your life you're going to remember for a long time. A very, very expensive day. So when these are the higher priorities, they're getting the first chomp on whatever income is coming in. And that means when we get to talking about the variable expenses, the sort of things that by definition, if they're not fixed, remember fixed is something where somebody dictates to you how much you have to pay. So the variables are things where they can range in importance, but they're things that where you have at least some control over how much is spent. But if you've already drained your tank on the fixed expenses, then these are the ones that are way more likely to be, used. You're going to wind up using credit for. So in the area of the variable expenses, we're going to do a little three-step process that we talk about with our clients. So first off, there's the categorizing step. That's just breaking things up into discrete categories. If you are doing this on your own, which I hope you're doing, keep it simple. Okay, you don't need to go all, you can find stuff online. You can find spreadsheets that have 150 different expense categories. Do you need 150 different expense categories? Maybe somebody out there does, but for most of you, probably not. So keep it simple. Okay, just keep it something that is not going to be really daunting to you when you're just saying, okay, how am I doing here? Something you can take a look at fairly quickly and say, okay, I have a good sense of where I stand right now. So that you're categorizing, that's your first step, right? Second step is the tracking. This is really important to know where the money's going out to. And for a lot of people, it's a pain. It's like just, people are like, yeah, okay, I really got to do that. It is worthwhile to just take a look at where the money's going out to. What we're doing is we're looking for any kind of problem areas, right? So find some method that works nicely for you. You don't need to track to the penny. I know there's people in my industry who are like real purists about this, track everything to the penny. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to do that. You need to have some method of determining where the majority of your money is going. You don't need to be obsessive about it. Anyway, we got the first two there. There was the categorizing, then there's the tracking, and then the last in this area is the controlling. And I've got a slide here with 6 throwaway ideas for, as we say on the slide here, tips on how to curve your spending. We're using the word curve nowadays as opposed to slash or axe or cut or chop, a little bit kinder and gentler, curving your spending. And just running through some of these ideas, whether any of these are appropriate for you, I leave this up to you to determine how you choose to manage your spending. The envelope method is something your grandparents probably learned from their grandparents, or at least their parents. It's been around that long. It's just a plain cash management system where you've got a number of envelopes for whatever things matter for you, and label them and put in whatever amount of money you choose to drop into each particular envelope. I was having a look a while back at a TikTok video. The envelope method's actually been reinvented for the TikTok generation, and it is now called #cash stuffing. So if you're a TikTok person, next time you're on TikTok and you want to search for something and call it homework from Richard, #cash stuffing, go take a look for that. Anyway, so I was having a look at somebody who's definitely your generation and how she had broken up her money and what her expense categories were. Remember I said about categories. She had a separate category for tattoos. So I guess she's working on a set of, extensive tattoos, and so she has a monthly allocation for that's going towards tattoos. My personal budget has no allocation for tattoos, surprisingly, but anyway, you figure out for yourself if this is something that works nicely for you. Great and wonderful. Reloadable cards, actually more specifically, let's just call them gift cards. You know, the kind of card you see at the Shoppers Drug Mart or the gas station supermarket. I've met some people who've found that it was actually useful to buy some of those cards in order to sort of set a hard cap on how much they were willing to spend in a particular area. And I recall a person I met prior to COVID. I had met this person in person. And anyway, what they were doing was they were at the beginning of the month, they were purchasing a number of LCBO cards and taking them home and tossing the cards in the drawer. And that would be their at-home drinking money for the month. So, you know, time to go to the LCBO, open up the drawer, dig around, find a card. And if it's, let's say, halfway through the month and you're halfway through your cards, well, you're on track. If you're halfway through the month and the cards are all gone, well, you got a couple of dry weeks coming up to get you through to you know, the next reload. Anyway, something like that. Again, these are little ideas that some people find they work for them. Some people, moving on, take a look at other things. Cooling off periods. My parents did that one to me. When I was a little kid, my parents were very, very clever. A lot more clever than I am, or I was. So they were kind of like, yeah, okay, little Richard wants something. Yeah, they, you know, tell little Richard we're going to be back. We'll come back on the weekend, or we'll come back next weekend. Sure, we'll buy that. And they're like just going like maybe he'll forget. Anyway, if you wind up, you have kids or planning on having kids, do stuff like that. You know, like, you know, because kids, they can forget. I mean, now sometimes they don't forget. Sometimes they're like, I want that, I want that. And anyway, so you can need to find room for that in the budget. But anyway, maybe it works some of the time. Just quickly on the other side, the right side, multiple budgets. The idea there is as you go through over the course of the year, you got times where you got different demands on your money. I usually use December as the case in point. You can figure out for yourself why I would use December. What do people usually do in the month of December that affects their finances? Yeah, okay. So December is a long way away now. You know, it's like we're in February. December's pretty far out there, but it is coming. You know, Christmas is on its way again. You know, probably not thinking too hard about Christmas yet, but anyway, it is coming, and you know, there's a time to prepare for it. Last couple things here, the $ equals number of hours worked. This is in particular for big ticket items to get people thinking a bit about what they sacrifice in order to acquire a big ticket item. So if you've spent time to save up the money to buy something and you're actually using savings, well, you know, a little bit of mental math there to say, okay, well, you know, what I'm spending, how many hours do I have to work in this job that I maybe don't like that much. I don't know. This is up to you to decide. But anyway, and it's really comes down to, is it worth it? It's like it's playing a little you know, mind experiment on ourselves. If it's something where you haven't saved the money up and now you're planning on being in debt, well, it's the same sort of idea. Is like, okay, well, how much am I spending and how long it's going to take me to pay this off? So how long am I going to be in debt to be able to afford this? And if something is a higher priority purchase, sometimes we just recognize that, yeah, okay, it is worth it. You know, the fact that I'm exhausting my savings, or that I am, you know, planning on being in debt for some period of time because I really, 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 really do want this. It is very important to me. You know, spend your money on the things that are really important to you. Last point there, I hope this is not true for any of you, the leaving your cards at home. I will tell you that in the world of credit counseling, we will encounter people who they simply have way too much plastic in their wallet. Just a little factoid here before we move on. Before COVID came along, there was a day where I was at the head office and I went around a few of the most senior counselors asking them for their record story of most credit cards, one person, for their entire careers. I was looking for the office record, and I believe I found the office record, and it is 22. There was actually a human in the Greater Toronto area with 22 different credit cards and using all 22. So a record that should never be broken. I'm going to say that that's the one that you really don't want to try to take out, the 22 credit card record. Anyway, moving along here. Up to this point, I've been talking about spending plans, and the spending plans have really been looking at the here and now. Your income right now, your fixed spending right now, your variable spending right now. Now, of course, for some of you, maybe you're at a point where maybe you're still in school and you haven't actually launched into the adult world yet. So maybe I'm talking hypothetically for you, but let's say that for right now, we are actually talking about your income now, your fixed and your variable spending now, but that's not the full picture. The full picture has to incorporate the future. And when we get to the future, we got to talk about saving. We have to talk about goal setting. So, goal setting, it's all about the establishment of a method for, first off, for thinking about the future. And I've got this very, very simplistic, grid there on the middle of the screen, where on the left we got objective, and I've got this most simplistic example that's embarrassingly simplistic, but objective is about, you answer the question for yourself, what do you want? Like, it doesn't have to, like, I know a lot of people that they hear like, oh, is this about retirement? Is this about whatever, buying a home? It doesn't have to be for that. It's like something that motivates you right now. Something like, you ask yourself, you don't need to answer to me, but, answer to yourself, what motivates me right now? What do I want? I mean, like, maybe you're thinking, I'd like a vacation. Maybe a vacation actually works for you. Maybe something else works for you. I have no idea. Maybe there's something that really, again, if it floats your boat, good enough, fantastic. So goal setting is about saying, okay, well, I want something. Well, is it doable? I mean, like, you could put anything ridiculous there. I could say Richard wants a Ferrari. Like, that's not going to ever happen. But I could put it there. But it's not a goal. It's a dream. A goal is something that it exists in the world of reality. It's something that is actually possible. And to bring it into the world of possible, you've got to do a couple of things. You got to at least get an idea about where's your target date for that. When do you want that? How far out in the future do you want it? And you need to have some sort of an idea about what sort of cost is involved in that. And then beyond that, it's a question of just running the math and saying, okay, well, is this going to be doable or not? Now, I have this slide in here as a transition to the world of saving and investing. And this slide here, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. This slide here, the focus is really on one word, and our word is automatic. We need to focus there because for a lot of people, the truth is that you live in a place and a time where spending is encouraged. Okay, you can spend money, 24/7, 365. You know that. You know the world you live in, right? And spending can be a hell of a lot of fun. Spending can be really, really rewarding. And let's face it, saving is kind of boring. Like, when you think about, if somebody says, oh, I moved $50 into my savings account. I mean, like, you're not about to go and run around and go tell all your friends, I put $50 in my savings. Like, it is kind of boring. Investing can be fun. Yeah, but the thing is, to get to the point where you're doing investing, you have to have, prior to that, you got to have something to invest with. And that's where the world of saving comes in. What I typically recommend is, for a lot of people, there's a time to contact whatever financial institution you're at and ask them if they have any recommended methods or suggested methods for moving money when when you've got money, to move it from your checking account, get it into other accounts where it can do some good over the longer term. So on the slide here, I've got things like automatic deductions on payday. That's sort of a very old school method, but it still works for some people. And if I can encourage people to do that earlier on in life, if you just set something up where every time you get paid, some chunk of money leaves your checking account and goes to some other account, you're probably never going to talk to a credit counselor again. Why would you? You're not going to have the kind of financial issues that drive people to talk to somebody like me. Now, having said that, oh, and I guess I should probably also mention the second bullet point there on this slide, the mention of incremental methods of saving. That works for some people in some circumstances where, I've talked to people who have in ridiculously low incomes, and they're just really just barely making ends meet. But they've got something set up through something like TD's Simply Save or Scotia's Bank the Rest, where every time they use their debit card, it flips like 25 cents or 50 cents from their checking account over to their savings account. And the idea is giving people a little bit of a cash buffer to deal with the stuff that every now and then life is going to throw a curveball in your general direction. And when it comes your way, then, okay, it's nice to be able to put your hands on some money quickly without having to go off to the payday lender. One last point here before I leave this. When we're talking about moving money to other accounts, it presupposes you have those other accounts. And if not, there's a bit of homework. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework here, job for you to take care of. Contact your bank and get from them an idea about what kind of accounts they would recommend they're advisable for you to have. So if you want my 2 cents worth, you've got a checking account that covers your regular bills, your daily spending. You got some money there for you for right now, right? You got a savings account. Savings accounts, just a straight savings account, pays almost nothing in interest. So you're not keeping money there just for, to make it grow. You got some money there to deal with emergencies, irregular expenses, stuff is coming up. Basically, the idea is you've got some place you could put your hands on some money fast. And then finally, we're talking about the future. And that's where you need to take a look at the world of investment. I'm not really going to get into that at this point here, but that is something to have a preliminary talk with wherever you bank. I'm going to suggest first off, if you are not already familiar with the TFSA, the tax-free savings account, it's time to learn a little bit about the TFSA. And if you already know what a TFSA is and you have one, great, wonderful, congratulations. Learn a bit more. Learn about how people are becoming very well off through their investments through the TFSA. Last point here, we're talking about money, is the subject of windfalls. So windfall it's irregular income by definition. That could be anything from a complete one-off, like you inherit money or you win the lottery, lucky you. But I'm focusing on things that happen annually. A couple of points here: bonuses, tax refunds, tax credits. They are an excellent opportunity, like it says on the slide, excellent opportunity to jumpstart a savings or investment plan, and to have these planned for and diverting money. For a lot of people out there, the single largest chunk of unspoken for money is when the tax refund comes in. Because you get a lot of people they're already encumbered by a lot of things going on in their life, right? They get paid every couple of weeks, but they got to cover the rent, they got to cover the insurance, they got to cover, there's a whole bunch of bills that got to be paid, and they got to live. They got to put gas in the truck, they got to put some food in the fridge, so on, so on, so on. And anyway, so there's like nothing left. They're always like nothing's left over, and then you got this unspoken for chunk of money coming in, and try to hang on to it and do something productive with it. Now, what I have coming up as a reminder for here today, let's just go and click on that. We get the page turning here, and we are going to swing away from just your usage of your own money and talk a little bit about the world of credit. And what I want to do first is I got to talk a little bit about credit cards. See, the thing is the reason why credit cards dovetails right into talking about money management is because a lot of people make the mistake of using a credit card as an effective income source. If you do that, you're really jeopardizing your future. I'm going to talk about how people use credit cards very, very well. And I am one of them. I tell you, I've got 2 credit cards. I love those things. I leave home, my credit cards are going with me. And my credit cards, they do heavy, heavy duty. I tell you, my 2 credit cards, the paint wears off the numbers. Like those credit cards are getting used so often that, you know, they're clearly, they've been heavily used. Now, this is one of the things that we should, in a better world, we would be talking to people about this before we even let you out of high school, talking about credit cards and what you need to know. And if anybody out there is sort of like dozing off, falling asleep, I want you to wake up for 1 minute here, because this is maybe one of the most important things I got to say. If you're going to use a credit card, you've got it. The grace period. Okay, you see on the slide there, the right side of the slide mentions the grace period. You need to make sure that you are in the grace period, or you get in the grace period and you stay in the grace period. Honestly, this is something they should be teaching people before they get anywhere near the age of 18. I'm pretty sure that some of you out there, you've had parents who've talked to you about this, and you're just sort of nodding your head here right now, like, yeah, we already get that. So if your parents actually already convinced you of this, oh, congratulations. Like you've passed what I have to say. But for anybody who doesn't need to hear this, the grace period is the time where no interest is charged. That's why I love my 2 credit cards. I haven't paid a penny in interest in years. What do you need to do to stay in the grace period? You got to clear the balance in full at least once every month. Doesn't matter how high that balance goes, it's got to come back. It's got to touch 0. And the last point on this slide, bottom right, is one of the most important things I can say. I have found over the years, I've been talking to groups of people, that people who are least likely to ever wind up on a road that leads to a credit counselor, there's one thing they do, and there's one thing they do systematically. They pay off their credit cards more often than once a month. I'm not going to get into the why of that. If I can convince any or all of you out there to just, every couple of weeks, transfer money from your checking account over to the credit card. Just do it every 2 weeks, or however often you choose to do it. I mean, for me, every second Friday, I zero out my credit cards, transfer money from the checking account to the credit cards. Boom, they're paid off. Boom, they're paid off. If the balance is actually inflated to the point where I can't pay it off immediately, well, then I need to go and adjust my finances. I need to stop using the card for a while. I need to figure out how I'm going to get that balance back down to 0. This is something that you'll recognize as time goes on. You'll recognize the benefit of actually doing that, because one thing it's going to do, it's going to eliminate the possibility of you using the credit card as a source of income, and that is a big win. Now, moving along here, for anybody who is in the grace period, or anybody who is aspiring to get into the grace period, do your homework on those potential benefits, okay? Because the potential benefits, whether we're talking cash back, points programs, I love my points programs, and I love my travel card as well. So those are my 2 cards. The one I earn points, the other one is for international travel. Take a look at what you can actually do. And if you're somebody who's in the grace period, this is where the world is trying to actually hand you free money. So if the world wants to hand you free money, you take that free money. Okay, last point here in the area of talking about credit cards, and I'm just going to be brief with this. The minimum payment system is a trap. Okay, anytime you take a look at a credit card statement and it says, oh yeah, we'll take a $10 or $20 payment, what they're doing there is they're trying to get you to fall out of the grace period, become comfortable carrying balances, pay a a ton of interest and stay in debt for a long time. So just repeat that to yourself. The minimum payment system is a trap. Okay. And we don't want to fall into traps, right? So we are into the home stretch here. Last little bit, we're going to just talk quickly about credit history. Credit history is going to matter. That's the credit score, the credit report. And why does it matter? Well, it matters because of the number of organizations that are just eager to find out what's going on with your credit. It's one easily accessible form of information that organizations can use to determine whether or not they're comfortable with the level of risk that you represent. And on the slide here, I mentioned some of the organizations that check credit, banks and any other kind of lending organization, cell phone companies for sure, other utility companies, and I'm sure that some of you have already experienced landlords wanting to check your credit. And when they're checking your credit, they're mainly focusing on what's called the credit score. And they're looking at the credit score and they're saying, okay, if it is above a certain number, we're going to consider you to be trustworthy and responsible and reliable. And if it is below that number, then we're going to say, like, no way. And without getting into too much detail about credit scoring, I'll just give you this little image here to take a look at for a second. So credit scores range between 300 and 900. I think you can see the color scheme there. The green area over on the right, that represents the area between 700 and 900. 80% of all credit scores are above 700. So, if your credit score is above 700, guess what? You're average. Like you're just an ordinary average Canadian. Yay. I totally bang right in the middle. Average credit score is probably about 750. So if your credit score turns up to something above 700, congratulations, you're done. You have good credit. Pat yourself on the back. If you're between 600 and 700, you're in the land of fair credit. Some organizations will say you're good enough. Some will say, no, you're not good enough. If you're below 600, I recommend you talk to somebody in either my industry or somewhere related closely to my industry. You need to talk to somebody who can explain to you through looking at your credit report why your credit score is so low, what that means, and what you need to do to fix it. Now, for anybody who wants to have a quick peek at what's going on with their credit, I have a slide here, how to check your credit. And without getting too much into the details here, I'm going to recommend for most people your bank. Either your bank's website or your bank's mobile app may be providing some method for you to check your credit anytime you want. Oh, and by the way, if any of you have ever heard the myth about you check your credit and it hurts your credit, okay, no, wrong. When you check your own credit, if you're arguing this point with somebody, you can point out that you heard from me that when you check your own credit, it is called a soft inquiry, and a soft inquiry has no effect on your credit score. So go check your credit. If you bank at some place that's not offering any method of checking your credit, I'm going to recommend second choice is to go to the Equifax website, www.equifax.ca. Scroll down to where it says, click here to sign up for your free, look for the word free credit score and free credit report. Click there. Fill in the boxes. Okay, you've done that. You've signed up for lots of stuff before in the past. Just one more thing. Great, wonderful. Now you can check your credit anytime you want. Last slide here before we get to question time, building good credit. If you want to have good credit, you need something that shows that you are capable of handling credit instruments. So you see on the slide there, activity, payment, low percentage of credit usage. I'm just going to focus mainly on activity and payment and get you all to remember what I was saying not 5 minutes ago about staying in the grace period. If you are using any form of credit, let's say you've got a credit card, once a month you take your credit card out, You go buy yourself, go to Starbucks, get yourself like a Frappuccino or something. Pay for it with your credit card. Okay, now that's activity. It says, yes, this person has a credit card and they're not afraid of using it. Okay, go back home. And like I said, a couple times a month to pay the card off. So you make a payment, activity and payment. Congratulations, you're in the world of good credit. And that was, there we are. That was the presentation. So we're going to find out if there are any questions. Anybody out there has anything, questions, comments, anything you want to sound off about? I'm assuming that we were putting everything into the chat. And Alan,
Sure.
do we have anything in the chat there?
Yeah, I did receive a couple of questions. First one, I have become obsessed with checking my credit score. What is a good credit score for someone in their early 20s? And how often should I check my credit score?
Okay, it's not so much about the age, it's about the length of time that you've been using credit. And I want to give you an example, not of, I have a good working example from somebody who was an immigrant to Canada. And this is somebody that I had met just before COVID started, and they had immigrated to Canada in the summer of 2019. So I met this person in January of 2020. They'd been in Canada perhaps 6 months. So their credit history was only 6 months long. But what they had done in those 6 months, they had this one credit card, and they had been applying the grace period method. They had not even known that it was called the grace period, but anyway, they had been using it and paying it, using it and paying it, just regularly using and paying it. And when this individual checked their credit, they discovered that their credit, and this is somebody very, very new to the world of credit, had a credit score that was between 710 and 720. So already above the 700 line, and anywhere above the 700 line is good credit. So there we are, somebody who's early on in the world of credit. Honestly, you could be in your early 20s. You could have a credit score that will be well up in the 700s easily. How often you check your credit? I'm going to say a lot of people, I say once a year. I check mine about twice a year, and that's just because I'm curious. If you've ever been a victim of identity theft, and I hope that none of you have ever been a victim of identity theft, but if you have been a victim of fraud or identity theft, then for the next little while, you're going to want to take a look at it on a more frequent basis, perhaps once a month. But most people, once a year, pull your credit in January, take a look at it, and it's like, there we are. Okay, you're done. Move on. Check it again next January.
Awesome. I did get another one. This one, the person did their homework. So according to BMO's 2022 Generational Financial Literary Study, 47% of Generation Z works with a financial advisor, more than any other generation. How do I choose a financial advisor?
That one, I wish I had a good answer for that one. I honestly, I don't have a good universal answer for that. That is something that you get out there, you look, you talk to people, you get a sense of like, what kind of questions is the advisor asking you? What sort of interest are they showing in you and your life? I mean, you're looking for somebody that you're going to match with, you're going to gel with. They're going to get you, and you're going to get them. And I don't have a secret answer for that. I'm sorry, but that's a good question. I don't have a good answer. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. People have to do their homework and find the advisor that matches their lifestyle. Is it a good practice to keep your credit card max spend limits low? Say, keeping it at a default of $1,000 versus requesting to get the limit increased?
Okay, that's a great question, by the way. So when you get your first credit card, in many cases, they offer you a credit card with quite a low limit, $500 or $1,000 limit. I don't know whether any of you, when you first started riding a bicycle, whether your parents gave you a bicycle with like training wheels on it. I had training wheels on my bicycle a long, long time ago. So a $500 or $1,000 limit on a credit card is like a credit card with training wheels on it. I like that analogy. I was told quite some time ago that the credit scoring algorithm looks at a limit of 1,500 or higher and considers that to be a real credit card with the training wheels taken off. So I would say that if they're offering an increase that is up to 1,500 or higher than 1,500, you accept that one, because that is the one where the financial organization is saying, we like the behavior we've seen from you, and we are showing confidence in that you are capable of handling this credit card with the training wheels taken off. So I'd say yes to the first increase, but then beyond that, beyond the first increase, then it becomes a question of how much credit you think you need and how much you're actually comfortable with. For quite a number of years now, I've been saying no to my main credit card company because I have a limit that is high enough for me, and they've offered to raise it and raise it and raise it, and I'm like, no, 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 because I've seen people get into trouble with just plain too much credit. So hope that helps. It was a good question, though. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we are getting great questions here.
Yeah.
Have one more. Is there a problem with paying the card in full right after the statement day? I have heard it's better that the balance doesn't exceed the 20% of the total credit at the statement day.
Okay. Actually, you can pay your credit card balance off in full all at once. And if you are paying it off completely, and in credit speak, well, we'd be saying that your payment is, and this is pure credit speak, it is hitting the billing cycle. So a payment is being recorded as coming in when it was supposed to come in, and the credit scoring, essentially these are computers talking to computers, and your payment lands and it was an adequate payment and it came in at an appropriate time, and a little flag goes up that says, yay, you did the right thing. And that basically gets pumped into the algorithm that creates the credit score. So whether you're paying it off every couple of weeks or whether you're paying it off, once a month, doesn't actually affect the credit score at all. But when I talk about paying things off multiple times, what I'm actually trying to sneak in here without really going and saying it is it's essentially a cash flow management strategy. It's a way of getting people to keep their eye on the financial ball, and it's something that I suggest it to people. I tell them it'll keep them out of debt, and then later on, people you get it after you've done it for a while. You're kind of like, oh, 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 and that's what I'm trying to shoot for. Anyway. I hope that helps.
Definitely helps. Giving it one more minute to see if anyone else has questions. If not, please feel free to send them to info@atclub.ca, and we can follow up with some questions. I think that's it.
Looks like we're good.
Looks like we're good. Oh, we have another one. Is there something to be aware of using? Like financial tools from e-commerces?
Okay, there's nothing that really comes to mind right now about financial tools in e-commerce. Although you're always going to want to focus on if you're being provided some kind of a tool, you've always got to be asking, what's the cost? What's the cost of this, and how does it work with my overall cash flow situation? I saw there was something there that popped up from the person that mentioned about making payments and making buy now, pay later plans is I believe what they're called, where you are you're buying something now and then you're committing to make 4 payments to pay something off. So again, if we're talking about somebody who is paying enough attention to their overall spending plan, they have a spending plan. They may not like live the spending plan every single minute of every single day, but they have a sense of where their money's coming from, where the money's going out to, and they haven't overcommitted. So that question there that was asking about, for example, paying things in 4 installments. What you're doing there is you're adding on an extra fixed expense there, something that you have committed to. And if you can't follow through on your commitment, like if you got something on a buy now, pay later, and now you're not making your payments, you know what they're going to do? They're going to write the thing off. They're going to send it to a collection agency. The collection agency is going to trash your credit. Some of your lovely 750 credit score is going to turn into a not so pretty, 590 credit score. And now you're going to have all kinds of issues. You're trying to find a new place to live. Landlord wants to check your credit. Landlord takes look at that 590 and they're like, oh, hell no. Like, no. I already rented the apartment to somebody else. So the thing is that, again, as long as you're okay with, like, as long as you're on top of the game enough that you're looking at what's happening with your cash flow, you're on top of, like, if you're taking on an obligation, you're going, yeah, I can meet this obligation, no problems, easy peasy, great, wonderful, then fine. But again, always keep an eye on what it's going to cost you, the impact on your cash flow. And if you're running through life on a positive cash flow, I tell you something, you get the sense that the world loves you. And it's not really love. It's like, but it certainly seems that way, where your bank always wants to talk to you. Your financial advisor wants to talk to you. If you got a stockbroker, your stockbroker wants to talk to you. And that's the way a lot of people, that's how your life winds up. These people don't really love you. If you ever go through adversity, you find out really quickly when your finances go like whoop, you find out who your real friends are in a one hell of a hurry. But this is the world we live in, right? So you manage it as best you can. And these are great questions, by the way. Thank you very much. And so it looks like we got everything cleared there for the questions. So
yeah, it looks like we are clear here. Thank you so much for your time, Richard. It has been an amazing presentation. I'm pretty sure everybody found it very valuable. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today.
Good enough. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me. And to everybody out there, just hope you can apply something of what I had to say here today. And thanks a lot. And hopefully you never talk to a credit counselor again.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much. This has been recorded, so we will be sending the recording and we will be posting a presentation in our social media. So stay tuned for that. And that's it for now. Thank you.